It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, June 16th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is looking at buyout options, Russ.
Yeah, you have to do it.
It's that time of year. Plus, the Flyers hire yet another alumni to the front office staff. We're going to talk about that as well, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there. Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You can subscribe or follow us for free on YouTube. We're on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you'll get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you once again to all of you who have subscribed on the YouTube channel, unlocking our first giveaway. We're well on our way to the second one, so check over on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed and comment on the giveaway post to enter yourself in that. Russ, it feels like deja vu all over again. The Flyers have hired another prominent alum to the front office staff. John LeClair will be joining Patrick Sharp as a special advisor to the hockey ops department. And, from what the press release said, it seems like the two of them will be working together on player development and such. Gotta say, it's like two is a coincidence and three is a pattern, as they say. And I am like, it's kind of fun in some ways, and just like, all right, let's just throw all the Flyers alum at a wall and see what sticks and see what we can do here. And some of it is like kind of concerning from the lack of experience side of things, right?
Well, there's part of the, group of fans that wanted to get rid of the old guard. So they just brought in the less old.
The new guard.
Yeah. So we don't know what they can do. We don't have a way of gauging any of their experience and what they're going to be doing in their positions to even know if they're going to be successful. Like, it's hard to even gauge it. So it's like, okay, is this it? Like, are you done now? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like I have fatigue from it, in the sense that I hit a brick wall if I'm trying to see like what the plan is here. I can't see it, so I'm just gonna stop.
Yeah, I think that, for me, it does bring up that question about the old guard as far as those special advisors, and if they're going to be phased out or if they're going to just all be there and the old guard will be there in name only kind of thing. And
Right.
And this is a way to like appease everybody, is to just leave their name on the list, but really have it be Patrick Sharp and John LeClair doing the player development work and such. I think that it is fascinating. Like, this whole thing is truly fascinating. And like I said, I kind of love it and I'm kind of terrified at the same time. So,
As you should be.
yeah. And there's just no way to know
There
because
isn't.
none of these guys have the experience. Obviously Danny Briere has
Right.
the experience and he's at the top of the GM side of things, right? So I'm less nervous there. But as far as everybody else, it's just kind of a free for all. And let's go along for the ride.
That's it. That's
Um,
exactly that's a good motto. That should almost be their motto.
yeah, I think, the jokes, of course, started flying about other potential alum joining. And one of the names that had actually legitimately been thrown around is Simon Gagne, because he's been coaching for a while now and up in the queue. And he just got the gig as the GM in Quebec for the Ramparts, taking over for Patrick Waugh. He was the assistant coach there. And so, he's on a management track right now too. And he could be joining the Flyers in the future. Who can tell?
Yeah, you never know. He does have his banner hanging in the rafters. He was a legend there. So, good for Simone. Let's see, he could be successful like that. I mean, tough shoes to fill after Patrick Waugh for sure, but whatever.
Absolutely. All right, getting to our main topic of today's show, the NHL buyout window begins today. It opens 48 hours after the end of the Stanley Cup final. So that would be today. It runs through June 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And this is that small window where teams can buy out a player's contract. And there are specific rules around how you calculate it. So if a player's younger than 26, you have to pay a third of the remaining contract value, and if they're over 26, it's 2/3 of the remaining contract value. And then there's a formula for calculating what the hit is per year. It spreads out the salary over a period that's twice the remaining length of the contract. So
Right.
that's how long it affects the cap. And so that's kind of the framework to go into the discussion for this on the Flyers. And we started talking about that a little bit yesterday when we were talking about the new Flyers on the team coming in from the LA Kings and Cal Petersen. And so looking at an option to buy out Cal Petersen, the first year cap hit is monstrous because
is.
of him being a 2/3 guy, and with his salary, it's 5.1 million. It's actually over his $5 million cap hit for the first year, but then it goes down real far. It's only the 0.1 essentially for the next year, and then 1.166 for the remaining 2 years that it would be. And so because he has 2 years left on the contract, it's a 4-year cap hit on the buyout. And so it seems like a bad idea based on that first year cap hit, and given the fact that the cap is not going up at all, right?
Right. So what I would do is let him send him if Ursun's going to be the backup, then send him down to the AHL. You'll get around $1 million in savings plus. If you can trade Sandstrom, great. If you can't, then you save at least close to $1 million, and that's as good as you can do. It's better than paying over and then worry about it next year. Push that one to next year. It seems like that's the best thing to do.
It seems like an impossible thing to do for this season based on that structure for the cap hit, and at least like waiting one more year if you're going to keep him in the organization for this year, and to your point, putting him down in Lehigh Valley for the season to see if he's got anything left in the tank, and we can turn it around. Otherwise, then that's when I think you do the buyout.
Right, right. That's what I would suggest, and at least there's a savings there, and so yeah, it gives you an ability to get some other savings to maybe at least get some temporary players in there to help out this season. So it's about the best you could do.
Yeah, I think so as well. We have so many more options to talk about. We're going to talk about a couple forwards on the table in Kevin Hayes and Nic Deslauriers coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. I look better and feel great wearing Birddog shorts and pants. The stretch fabric really is comfortable, makes you look good. It's really more comfortable than my other shorts and pants. I really like them wearing them where doing yard work. I like them just hanging around the house, whether I'm tailgating, mowing the lawn. Really good for anything. Have been able to wear them long term during the day, and they're great. The anti-sweat wicking is great. It's really they're solid. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl. Enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off, we promise you.
You can follow Locked On Flyers on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That's where you'll keep up to date on our episodes, the latest Flyers news, and all that good stuff. You can also email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com to get your mailbag questions answered. And next week, everydayers can look forward to a lot of great content with the draft getting closer. The Locked On NHL mock draft is starting on Tuesday, so you'll get to see our picks coming up then. Kevin Hayes, I think, is the elephant in the room, so to speak, for the Flyers this season. And it's a bit of a quandary, I think, what to do with him because of his salary is such that it makes it difficult to trade him, even if you're going to retain some, because I don't
Yeah.
think the Flyers would want to retain more than like $2 million on his salary
Right.
of the 7 going into future years. And it's just such a weird situation because he is a quality player. He is skilled. I think that there's, due to some injury recovery and also just what was going on with the tort system, there was just some oil and water stuff going on with him this year that made it so Kevin Hayes is a very good hockey player. I would say elite or top tier, but I would say very good hockey player. But the fit just isn't quite right in this time for the Flyers to do a rebuild. He was brought in for a team that was much further along in a process to be competitive, and he was that one piece to kind of tie it all together down the middle. And that's just not where the Flyers are right now. So it's like through nobody's fault. It's not his fault. It's not, John Tortorella's fault. It's just a thing where the fit isn't right now. So what do the Flyers do with him? And buying him out could be an option here.
Yeah, I think the Flyers weren't honest enough with what was going on between Torts and Kevin. Like Kevin acknowledged that he'll play there, he'll be okay, he's a good soldier, and he is. Everybody gets along with him and all that. But the problem is, if Torts is trying to really impress upon the young players, this is what you have to do every shift, every moment. Hayes wasn't doing that. That was obvious. We would see that, and so I think you have to buy him out. I think once Columbus filled up their cap, the chance of him going there were nil, and I think they've shopped him, and I don't think anybody's interested based on the long term problem here. So at least the savings is decent here, and I think it's decent. I'm not saying it's great, but it's decent.
Here's my problem with it is that the savings the first year, I think, is decent. So his salary is 7.1, right? So the cap hit in this upcoming season would be 2.254, right? Which is fine. It's the following 2 years. Now, we don't know how much the overall salary cap is going to go up. Ostensibly, it'll go
up more than $1 million.
Right. You have to bet on it going up way more than $1 million. I would say 3 to 4 million because the cap hit for those 2 years is 4.754. Right. That's a lot. That's a lot of dead cap space. I mean, that could be 2 players.
Here's what I'm going to do, Rachel. We're buying you a new car, and now you're going into the worst part of the process. We're going into the back room now to talk about the financing of the car. And so what I basically would tell you about, and that's the worst. What I'm going to tell you about the financing is, yes, this year we're going to pay less, and that's good because the cap's only going up $1 million. The next 2 years, the cap's going to go up. So maybe the impact will only be like 25% to the roster instead of what it could be. And those next 2 years where it does go up like that, after that, it's smooth sailing at 1.6. when we actually want to spend money again. So it does fit in with the rebuild.
I don't know though. I question that to some degree because I think that maybe in year 2 you're okay, but year 3 you're starting to turn things around a little bit and you're starting to want to sign some free agents to
That's
work.
But that's a hope.
Yeah, but you have to plan for a best case scenario and a worst case
scenario is the cap will be like 90 million then too.
I don't know though. I think you have to plan for the best case scenario in terms of the rebuild, but the worst case scenario in terms of the cap.
No, you can't do it that way. No, you have to. If you're planning for best case scenario, just gave you the best case scenario for the cap too. So now you have to make your decision based on that. You can't go heavy on best case scenario on one and then be scared.
This is my risk management brain
I know,
talking,
but then you
Russ.
can't be scared of the other part. You either got, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you could do it that way as a club. I get what you're
Yeah.
saying. If you're an
Yeah.
insurance adjuster, sure.
Yeah, well, and if you're that car salesman, like you're just saying,
Yeah,
right? This is them saying, "Oh, why don't you take a 7-year loan so your payment is better,
right,
but your car's gonna depreciate and be worthless by then anyway."
right. I mean,
So,
that is a part of it. Um, but I think we have to come to grips that having Kevin Hayes on the roster is not a positive.
yeah, I think that, this is definitely a rock and a hard place here because I agree with you, and I think that it's just the wrong time and the wrong place for Kevin Hayes and the Flyers right now,
Yep.
but I don't think it's necessarily I think the buyout this year is potentially worse for the rebuild than the what it will be to have him in the locker room this year, and
Yeah,
that's the
what if
bet I'm
Tyson Forster is
making.
making the team? Then you know what? I don't really miss Kevin Hayes that much. I got someone to take his spot.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's just that I feel like on the money side of things, it doesn't make it any better. And so that's where I hedge a little bit. If they do buy him out, I don't think it's like the worst thing to ever happen, and I won't like
I mean, here's another
get
facet
super
too.
upset. But
Right. Here's another facet. What if, if one of Cam Atkinson or Sean Couturier get hurt again, you're going to have LTIR money then. So, like, there's a possibility of that too. Then you wouldn't even be worried about this Kevin Hayes thing anymore.
well, that's fair. That's fair. I think that, but again, I don't know if I personally want to count on that because of
I
my
know.
low risk tolerance
I know.
for it. All right. I want to talk a little bit about Nic Deslauriers as well. And this actually, I think, has more possibilities here because I think that while Nic Deslauriers is a perfectly serviceable body to have on the roster during this portion of the rebuild, I don't honestly mind it at all. But if you want to make room for one more younger player on the roster for this year and have that younger player be a part of the process of this rebuild, not having Nic Deslauriers on your team, I think helps you along that way. And his contract is very low cost. And so a buyout is going to be only, 305K the first year. And then you go up to 805K and 500K, for the next few years. That's pocket change in the salary cap and opens up that roster spot.
I think
And
that's what's important here is
mhm,
opening the roster spot. I understand the coach is going to bristle because he's my best penalty killer or one of them. But it's like, listen, John, the the old adage about the fishermen. If you teach them how to fish, you know they have fish for life. Well, you teach these guys how to play the PK, you'll have somebody else on the PK who's younger and faster. That's what you have to do. That's your job as a coach. You can't fall back on having an older, slower guy and keep him on the team and take a roster spot simply because he's good on the PK. Because after that, if he's not cracking skulls, like what do we have Nic Deslauriers on the roster for? So I think honestly, it's the most buyoutable, and it makes sense because I do feel like, yeah, you need to get those young guys on the roster in as many spots as you can. You still could go out and get a 1 year penalty killer on the outside market, and
yep.
be younger and faster than Deslauriers too.
Yeah, I think so too. And obviously you try and trade him first, right?
Yeah, I
Because
mean, if
that's
there's actually a market, yeah,
right, but it just feels like there isn't a market for him.
no,
Um, but I mean, if there is, by all means, trade him first, even if you're getting like a 6th round pick
it's
in
gonna be
return for it.
it's gonna be future consideration.
Yeah. Well, I would hope at
Well,
least
there's
a six.
Olsen one today for future considerations. Like that's
That's
probably
true.
yeah,
That is true, but yeah, so that's why I think Nic Deslauriers is a really good candidate for a buyout and almost the easiest no-brainer of all of them.
yeah.
But again, I do know that Tortorella likes him, so it's going to be a tough sell to Torts. But
You're the GM though.
ultimately,
This is where
yep,
you maybe have to start the process and say, listen, John, we have to work together here, and this makes sense for the team. You have to make the team work. So you figure it
yep.
out.
All right. Well, we have one more potential buyout to talk about, and that's on the defensive side of things with Tony DeAngelo, and we will get to that next. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful at all. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They've got killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. My favorite part of the Game Time app is it's great for getting notified about those last minute tickets. Plus, you can get a view from your seats, which is crucial for me. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Also, tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you'll never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets you want without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with that code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Russ, wrapping up our buyout contender options today, Tony DeAngelo. I think that it's been very clear for a while now that the Flyers are trying to trade him. And with good reason. He is terrible defensively, and
Yeah.
we're not getting the offensive production from him that was expected. Turns out when you don't partner him with Jacob Slavin, it doesn't work out too well. And the Flyers kind of struggled in finding the right partner for him to make his play palatable, and it just hasn't been there. And we saw him get benched for a good portion of the end of the season there. So, I think, with him only having a year left on the deal, the buyout is a 2-year cap hit. It's only 1.6, 67 or whatever it is per year because he is over 26. So that $5 million cap hit just goes away. And I think, having that cost just for this year and next year is fine for the rebuild timeline. So I think you do it.
I think you do it too. It looks like Tony DeAngelo is talking about it too on Twitter. So
On his not so secret account.
yeah, no, this is Tony DeAngelo 7 with a check mark. So is it him? I don't know, because we know the burners, but
Check marks don't mean anything
check marks don't
anymore.
mean anything
So
anymore. So maybe it's him, maybe it isn't. Either way, he's probably already commented on it on Twitter. And the thing is, it's not like he's devoid of offense. The offense is still pretty good, but it's not so good that you could overlook the other stuff. And it's clear that John did give him the most rope, I think, of any player. He's like, look, I like his physicality. Then a couple weeks later, it's like, look, his scoring's pretty good. Then he's like, look, he's a third pairing guy. What can I tell you? It eventually wore down to that. And so cost wise, why would you move on with him? You just wouldn't. And again, the amount that they gave up to acquire him, and now and you couple that with the losses, it's obscene. It was obscene the day they did it. I don't understand where Chuck Fletcher and the rest of the crew there thought it was a good idea, and now it looks even worse, right? But the buyout's reasonable, and you do it, and by year 3, he's forgotten. And really by year 2, by next year when the cap goes up a lot, he's forgotten. So if you don't want to do Kevin Hayes and you want to wait, doing Deslauriers and doing DeAngelo opens up a couple spots and does save you a little bit of cash. Plus, you could save a little bit of cash with the Peterson, and that may be the overall best thing this year. And this way, you can go get a couple of players in free agency with that backfilling process that the coach talks about, and at least you feel like something's happening with this team as far as moving forward, rather than looking at the guys that are just playing out the string.
Yeah, I think it is important to look at it in total. So if you bought out all 4 guys, their salary is just shy of 19 million for those 4. If for the buyout, that would be a $9.3 million cap hit on on the salary for this upcoming season. It would go down to 7.4 for the year after that. So I think that doing all four might be a bit much because that's a lot of dead cap space.
It
Now,
is.
in year one of a rebuild, could you get away with it? Probably, but you would have to put a lot of the younger guys in with more ice
More than the
time.
coach would want. That's the issue.
Exactly. And that's where I see, like, I don't think it's possible to do all four of these, but I
Right.
think, certainly the Deslauriers DeAngelo combo is reasonable and doable and actually beneficial on the financial and the roster side of things.
Yes.
Like we've been talking. So maybe kind of starting with there, and then depending on Kevin Hayes and the discussions that you have, you
Right.
consider that one. I think that would be the priority order for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a good plan. I feel like you have to start at least getting rid of the guys that, like I said, are kind of playing out the string. Now, other guys who aren't playing out the string are going to unfortunately go too. Like Travis Konechny is eventually going to go. Like, and he's given it his all. So nobody's ever going to wonder about that. Scott Lawton, maybe because he's low cost, they'll keep him throughout his Flyers career. That's possible. So, but the other guys, it's like guys that are there that are getting the high pay, but they're not really going to help advance the ball for your organization, like teaching wise or mentoring wise or anything else. You got to just get rid of them. Like if you had an aging, Chris Pronger as an example, he'd still be helping your young D like Chara did. Then you keep that guy, right? Then you don't worry about what you're paying him.
Yeah.
But these guys that we're talking about, they're not doing any of that.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. And I think that, we saw at the end of the season, like I said, with Tony DeAngelo getting benched, it wasn't a problem to not have him out there playing. And even with Provorov gone, we have Walker there as a body on defense. So it's not like, we're down a man.
Right.
As we were, compared to the end of last season, it opens up a second spot on D for a younger guy to maybe make a run at getting a permanent spot on the roster. And I think that's what's more important right now.
It is. That is what's more important. And I think this way, like I said, you get a couple people in free agency. Fans will at least like that they're going to do something in free agency. The ones that think they'll be a good team, hey, you can think the Flyers are going to be a good team. I'm not going to talk you out of it. I don't think they'll be a good team, but that's fine. Either way, that part doesn't even matter.
No,
It's just,
not in year one.
yeah. It's just like, you know what? You just need to see progress in the young players and progress in the organization, whether it be the draft, whether it be your player development. You need to start seeing that progress. That even in year one, you need to start seeing that.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's a good place to end it. If you have any other guys you want us to consider for a buyout, let us know, and we'll talk about it next week. We will also be talking more draft next week. And once again, I just want to thank y'all for subscribing and go comment on the YouTube post for the giveaway, and keep subscribing so we get closer to that next giveaway. Everyday listeners, on Monday, we will have our nemesis of the week as well. So looking forward to that. If you want to ask us mailbag questions, you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. You can tweet us at lockedonflyers, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for listening and have a great weekend.